Yantras. The meaning of the yantra is tied to the symbolism of the directions of space, the relative importance of elements increased, proceedings from outside to inside, according to Kalki Prasada, Dabral, Kalyana Shakti. The downward pointing triangle which unites Ishana, the sovereign northeast, Agni, fire southeast, and Varuna, water west, represents the preserving female principle, Shakti, or Vishnu. The upward pointing triangle unites Roga, the destroyer, northwest, Vayu, wind, southwest, Surya, east, in the image of male principle, Shiva. Interpreting triangle symbolizes the union of the opposites, the sources of ascends, the sexual union. The union of water, horizontal, fire, the female and the male principle is also represented by the cross. Mukti Yantra, liberation. Raj Yantra, supernatural contacts. Symbols, spiritual directions, Surya, east, Agni, Varma, Varuna, Tamaru, Ishana, northeast. In yantras, the intersection points of two lines are called piercings. Behedana and juncture points are the unions. Sandhi, when the lines cross to sensitive point, marma is formed. Sandhi and marma points are called nodes, granthi. The Damaru, Shiva's drum, is formed by the two right hand and left hand triangle of Solomon's seal. Vrita tendency is a moon-shaped line image of the sky. Parivesha envelops in square, symbol of the earth. Bhupuru is the terrestrial city, finds its image in every triangular form. Samrahara, Shiva, who appeases the anguish of desire, is represented by 5-point star. The number 5 is the principle of life. Vishnu Yantra, Vishnu the protector, is identified with Mother Goddess. Samhara Shiva Yantra. The plan person, Vastu Purusha. On the temple plan, just as in any person's body, must be found the crucial points corresponding to various subtle faculties defined by the Yoga Chakra. These are the points where the universal person and the individual person meet. The temple plan is thus conceived as a diagram on which the various energy centers are located and is consequently known as the plan person, Vastu Purusha. The human chart of the temple Vastu Purusha Mandala is a magical diagram to be used by a qualified architect as the basis for the building an efficacious temple. The Vastu Purusha continues the tradition of Vedic altar as far as the arrangement of its various members is concerned. The hands of the Purusha are joined in the Anjali Mudra. This is the Anjali Mudra. The gesture of offering, its position varies slightly according to whether the temple is built by a priest, Brahman or prince, Kshatriya. In the first case, the head lies to the east, whereas in the other to the north. In temple built by a priest, the Vastu Purusha stretches from east to west following the sun's course, going from light to darkness. The diagram on which the Vastu Purusha's design is obtained by dividing temple plan into 64 or 81 squares, 2 raised to the power 6 or 3 raised to the power 4. In these squares are represented 45 deities corresponding to the members and vital organs of the Purusha. The space set aside for each deity may vary but not its respective position. In the center is situated the transcendent principle Brahmana Sthana, 12 deities from inner circles surrounded by another 32 placed around the perimeter. In Shaivite tradition, the Vastu Purusha reposes on the golden serpent Vastu Naga but supports the earth. Its vehicle is the bull. The serpent Naga represents the non-manifest aspect of Shiva and the bull in manifest aspect. In its anthropomorphic representations, the four-armed Vastu Purusha holds a club, a trident, an axe, and scepter adorned with a skull. It is red like the rising sun. The body of the Vastu Purusha corresponds to that of the sacrificial human victim. On the top of the Vedic altar was built the incorporation of relics of a martyr. In the Christian altar is also survival of the practice. The lamb or goat as a replacement for the human victim. Symbol also found in the Christian Agnus Dei or Lamb of God. As general plan of the temple and the site, the Vastu Mandala includes power lines associated with the crossing of the Purushas, subtle arteries forming particular sensitive points, Marama, on which the temple's health depends. In the construction of the building, the line of the mandala have to be rigorously observed so that no obstacle column, support or chapel can obstruct the circulation of living forces in the temple itself and in the surrounding area. This also has to be taken into account in establishing access, diagonals, opening and other elements. The subtle structure of human body is not accidental. It summarizes the possibilities of existence in a given world and reflects laws that are valid for the individual. For society and for transcendental world of the gods, life scenario must be suited to human nature and become an extension of the human being. It must be in harmony with the cosmic laws, not mock them. The whole universe is governed by proportional ratios and numeric relations. Human structures, whether temple, palaces, houses, or cities, must harmonize and integrate with the natural order, because otherwise people will not be at ease there and evil tendencies will take over. Erotic representations. The outer and the inner wall of the Hindu temple are entirely covered with symbolic representations and sculptures describing the various aspects of earthly and heavenly life in which erotic scenes prevail. Since the fact often arouses the greatest surprise, it is best to clarify their significance and explain why such portrayals are present in holy places while excluding a priori or pornographic connotation. The value of erotic representation decorating Hindu temples is both magical and educational. The various forms of unions of opposites are situated at crucial points in the temple structure and form part of its meaning as the image of the cosmic world. The use of several figures mean that highly complex diagrams can be employed, which have a greater magical effect. The position of the image sculpted on the wall, columns vaulting the doors of the temples is determined by each image's own diagram as well as the place it must occupy within the overall plan of the temple. The major erotic groups constructed in a square diagram um, occupy the center of the northern and the southern facades. The center of the wall is occupied by an image of the sun, the temple's entrance being to the east. To create an image, the sculptor first traces its diagram or yantra on the stone using an awl, carefully observing the proportions of the various linear elements. Then the points shown in the diagram, they indicate the bodies structural centers as defined by yoga principle: wrist, ankles, the base of neck, navel, sexual organs, knees, etc., after which the image is sculpted in relief. These sculptures recount the development of every kind of erotic relations. Background pilgrim at Konark. Temple photographed by Bernard Bizanet. Top inset carving of Narasimha, man lion, one Vishnu's incarnation on the stone pillar on Vitthal temple, the Karnataka state, 16th century, Panansi yield. Bottom, dancing Apsara from the Thousand Pillars, Meenakshi temple, Madurai. Background Apsara, Adinath temple, Jaina, Khajuraho, 11th century. Top erotic sculptures and capitals of Nepalese, Wood temple, Varanasi. Bottom inset details Gopi temple outside Madurai. Temple of Meenakshi interior. Central pond, the tower, Madurai. Carved column, old temple on Hemakuta hill, Karnataka. Bottom stone relief of Hanumana, Vitthal temple, Karnataka, 16th century. The Rama Lakshma Sita Vitthal temple, Vijayanagara, Karnataka, 16th century. Mithuna Vishwanath temple dedicated to Shiva, Khajuraho, 10th century. In Pravasthana temple, Jaina temple, Khajuraho, 10th century. Apsara carved into the temple pillar ruins of Vijayanagara, Karnataka state. Divyagana Dalodeo temple dedicated to Shiva, Khajuraho, 10th century. Carving of temple dancer Vithala temple, Karnataka, 16th century. Achyutaraya temple, Vijayanagara, Karnataka. Kandariya Mahadev temple, Khajuraho, 11th century. Mithuna Vishwanath temple dedicated to Shiva, Khajuraho, 10th century. One of the most beautiful shikaras from the west group of Khajuraho, Apsara Adinath temple, Jaina, Khajuraho. Temple of Meenakshi, Madurai. Krishna temple, Vijayanagara, Karnataka state, photograph. Krishna temple, Vijayanagara, Karnataka state. Temple sculptures represent every aspect of amorous relation. Here a lover is about to strip a hesitant young woman of the skimpy clothes, temple of Raj Rani, Bhuvaneshwara. We first approach kisses, hands slipping beneath clothing, and the manual stimulations performed by men, women, children, either or themselves or on some partner. The penetration includes every imaginable posture, some of which are quite acrobatic, requiring the help of assistants. The representations include oral intercourse, cunnilingus, sodomy, solitary or the group masturbation, and so on. Images of women copulating with animals are frequently represented, whereas female homosexual practices are rare except for those involving uh, young girls. Opposite base of column with erotic scenes, childbirth, 12th century. The Kama Sutra posture, temple of Lakshmana Khajuraho. Scenes of male homosexuality always show at least one character wearing monastic garb. Most of the erotic images represent gods or demigods wearing crowns. Human beings is more realistic, less stylized, and less stylized than that of gods. The temple is above all an abstract structure corresponding to the power lines established in the plan and in space. In reality lies its proportions and measurements, the temple's visual aspects. Its solid material is merely covering. In this scene, it corresponds to an astrological chart or the proportions inherent in the nature of living beings. From the point of view, the temple is called Vimana, that which is measured. It reproduces the inner rhythms of human beings and of the world, besides the deities who correspond to these rhythms: Agni, fire, Vata, wind, Surya, sun. During construction, each brick or stone is identified with divine aspect corresponding to its setting with aid of mantras, magic formulas with a meter that evokes the rhythmic elements in the consideration. The science of numbers, Ganita, makes it possible to establish relations between various forms of existence and to evoke them in the temple structure. Since it becomes the residence of deity, the temple is called Prasada, seat. Devalaya, house of God, is simply Mandira, dwelling. Once a suitable site has been identified for the temple and has been dedicated, with sites and sacrifices, it is carefully cleaned, purified, and fenced. The architecture will establish the unit of measurement that will serve to determine proportions. Typically, he will choose between his own cubit and the king's. Sometimes, however, he will adopt a wholly different basic measurement, because as with musical harmony, only proportions, ratios of the temple are important, not the dimensions. Built is the high platform on which the temple will rest, called Jakati, world. Its breadth must be 3/4 times that of the prasada. The temple itself, on the platform, the temple is built up at the level known as Kati, the hip, corresponding to the height of the entrance stairs leading to the where the sanctuary and the image to be worshipped will be located on the platform at the point. Right, on the central axis is marked the place where sanctuary will be located. Temple dwellings of gods. The sanctuary, Garbhagriha. The sanctuary is called Garbhagriha, dwelling of the embryo, the Hiranya Garbha, golden embryo, is the creative power from which the universe issues, and Garbhagriha is the matrix in which manifests. It also corresponds to the cavity in the human heart where immensity of the principle, the Brahmana, is hidden. The sanctuary is located at the center of the temple and its only opening faces east. The most ancient sanctuaries are flat stone dolmens, vertical and horizontal slabs forming a square room at the center of a stone wall boundary. Dating from prehistoric times, dolmens are still constructed today among Himalaya populations. Dolmen. Today, Himalayan population as well as among primitive Indian tribes, particularly the Kools. The dolmens is the sense of the temple. However vast and imposing the temple structures may be, their splendor serves solely as an ornament to the small bare timber lens in which the deities manifest. The sanctuary of the Chhapri temple seen from the circular mandala, central India, 11th century. The Garbhagriha is cube-shaped room without decorations which reproduces the original dolmen. As a rule, it is covered by flat stone. On the architrave are sculpted the images of the 9 planets. Navagraha. Only a qualified priest may enter the magical place to worship the image with flowers, waters, lights, incense, offering symbolizing the 5 elements. There is often a totally secret and wholly closed Garbhagriha located beneath the visible one containing the linga used for the rites and for worship. In central India, a narrow passage runs around the sanctuary to be walked around clockwise, so the temple of the monument is on one's right, except in tantric rites or black magic. Walking counterclockwise is considered to be maleficent. The Garden of the Door sanctuary and the Dasavrata temple at Deoghar, 7th century. The mountain and the cave in Shikharan and Garbhagriha. Above all the around in Garbhagriha sanctuary is built the Shikhara mountain, however, the tower with curving walls, square at the base and the circular at its peak. The curves of Shikhara are a result of the base of the Shikhara is determined by yantras and the Vastu Purusha, of which the linga is the center. The sheathing of the sanctuary constitutes the prasada dwellings of the palace. Southwest corner of the Shikhara, Bulkajrahu. Octagonal Shikhara of the Lakanteshwara temple in Nagara style. Although now far from any major city, the temple still operates. The sanctuary lamp has never been since it was built, giving the location and the especially sacred character of the Udaipur Gwalior state century. Decorations of Shikharas of Bhukteshwara's temples, Brihadishwara, in the Nagara style temple of Sirohi, Rajputana, 12th century. Like its plan, the temple vertical proportions are based on principle of powers of 2, the musical octaves 2, 4, 8, 6, 10, 32, or else on the powers of 3, like the 5th, 3, 9, 27, 81. The vertical portions of the wall before the curving starts correspond to the 1/3 of the total height with the Greek columns. The overall height of the main tower, the Shikhara, up to the shoulder or terminal platform, Skandha, is twice the total of the width of the temple. The height of the linga within the sanctuary or the Garbhagriha must be 2/3 of the 7/8 of the height of the door, and the pedestal included 7/8 of the height. The height of the linga is the same as the width of its pedestal. The Shikhara represents the world axis. Mount Meru, the invisible polar mountain on which the celestial world rise. In a cavern, the entrails of the mountain, the world egg, the embryo of splendor, Hiranyagarbha, is conceived. The Garbhagriha represents the sacred cavern in the mountain's heart, and the Shikara in the image of the mountain with its many stories representing the seven higher worlds below, inserted into the main body of the Shikara, represents each world, Bhumi. The cavern evokes primordial darkness preceding creation before the appearance of light. It is the cave where the magic rites are performed, and it corresponds to the crypt in the medieval cathedrals of the Christian world. In India, there are numerous temples hollowed out of the rock like those of Ellora. The caverns always have magical and sacred character. They are the dwellings of hermits and the gods, in particular the god of beauty, Skanda, born of the Shiva sperm, who withdrew into the caverns of Mount Vishakha, called Guha, mysterious as secret. He is chaste and his cult is forbidden to women. Sages come to him withdrawing from the world to practice austere life of contemplation. In the center of the Garbhagriha rises the Linga, phallus source of life, the god Shiva emblem. The Linga is considered to be the axis of the world, the Linga of light, Jyotirlinga, around which the seven transcendent worlds rise into yours, determines the vertical axis of Shikara, the mountain or tower terminating with Amlaka, the celestial crown. The fruit of the celestial crown, Amlaka. The Shikara's four curved facades terminate in a narrow platform called Skanda, shoulder. This square platform is an altar, the apex of terrestrial and intermediate worlds, on which rests the Amlaka, the celestial crown. In the most ancient text of the Vastu Shastra, the Amlaka is called the egg under, since the manifestation is born from the primordial egg. It is, in fact, a horizontal toothed wheel made of a single piece of stone which firmly holds the four sides of the temple together. In the center of the wheel there is a hole that is located directly above the linga, which in its invisible form, the linga of light, Jyotirlinga, runs through the temple and reaches the transcendent world, just as coiled energy in the human body reaches the opening of the top of the skull and thus attains the celestial worlds. Because is a lotus corresponding to the lotus of 1,000 petals on the head of the yogi. It is part of the temple's crown, Chula, formed of several elements: the Padma, Shirsha, the Amphora, Kalakalasha or Kumbha, and the lotus bud. Decorations of the Shikara, Khajuraho, 10th century. The door of the sanctuary. When the door of the sanctuary is open, its quadrangular shape frames the image of deity, which thus appears to the faithful gathered in the vestibule of mandapa, illuminated by the oil lamp swung by the priest. Threshold is very high and no foot must rest on it, has to be jumped over. The lotus is depicted in the center of the threshold. On the casting of the door are sculpted the Dwarapalas, the guardians of the sanctuary. Their height 1/4 of the total height of the door opening. Climbing plants are depicted towering above the guardian of the sanctuary. The arabesques contain love scenes, animals, various deities, recalling the tree of life. The deities of the sacred rivers are represented in the casting to evoke their purifying powers. The vestibule or the mandapa by the square room upheld by columns just in front of Shikara, the temple. This part of the temple is accessible to the faithful in the major temples, there many there may be a succession of mandapas as there are in Egyptian temples. In such cases, the most important one located just in front of the sanctuary entrance is called Mahamandapa. As a rule, the height of the mandapa should not exceed half the height. The temple of Shikara. The contained stone roof is pyramidal, although existence for a long time before the construction of the temple walls are not allowed in temple construction for symbolic reasons. They are used only for meeting rooms, such as the Buddhist vihara. The width of the mandapa's entrance door may be the same as that of the sanctuary door, but it must be higher by a quarter, a third, or half. The mandapa is juxtaposed to the temple from an architectural point of view. This means that the shikara, with all its decorations and sculptures, must be contemplated before the mandapa is built. Some sculptures are hidden between the two structures. Extensions can be seen around the shikara and the mandapa in the form of balconies known as ratha or chariots. The four columns in the center, the mandapa forms a square which must be in the same size as Garbhagriha, whatever the dimension of the surrounding building. True for additional mandapa, architectural treatises such as Smarakanga Gana Sutradhara mention mandapa with as many as 64 columns. Mandapa do not necessarily have external walls, they may be simply peristyles or colonnades. In southern India, mandapas are classified according to their number of columns. They may have 4, 12, 16, 8, 13, 32, or 100, or even 1,000 columns. Kriti Mukha. Above the mandapa, besides the tower of the shikara, there is a permanent that faces the pediment that faces the rising sun and dominates the temple. No sculpture is found higher up than this pediment, known as the Shukanasa, the parrot's beak, in architectural jargon, which officially bears the name of Gavaksha, bull's eye, since in this case the bull signifies the sun. On the peak of the Gavaksha is found a curious symbol called Kirti Mukha, the face of the renowned. It is lion's head without low jaw. Its idleness eyes end and in a kind of horn. In the legends, the face of renowned is called Grasa, the devourer, and is associated with Rahu, the planet made of shadow, invisible and bodiless, which causes eclipses. Legend recounts that Rahu was a genie and asura. The Gavaksha's bull eye, the temple of Udaipur, Gwalior, 11th century CE. Kirti Mukha. The renowned Kirti Mukha at Udaipur. Gavaksha of the temple Mukteshwara, Bhubaneswar, 11th century CE. During the churning of the sea, he stole the Amrita, the liquor of immortality, which is the drink of the god. Vishnu, who had seen him do it, immediately cut off his head, and the only part of the Amrita had reached, which alone remained immortal. A similar symbol is known in China under the name of Tao Te, the Devourer, and also the medieval Europe, wherein cathedral architecture, particularly in England, is known as the Green Man. The face of renown represents the principle of time, Kala, time which destroys everything, is also the first principle of any possibility of existence, issuing from nothingness to total darkness in the eye, gives birth to light. Kirtamukha's lion, vehicle of primordial energy, its mouth emits a sound, the prime sense, quality, and principle of ether, Aksha, whose nature is space. From sound, the word issues, the whole universe flowing from its mouth first, in its primary forms, then in the multiple forms of the world represented by the abundance of temple sculpture. In the middle of the creation, the issues from the mouth of the face of renowned is the image of Shiva, whose erect phallus in the principle of life and whose dance gives birth to various forms of creation. Since the face of the renowned has no lower jaw, it cannot close its mouth and put an end to the universe. Virala, ridden by the yogi, the wise man who tames the elephant, symbols of the nature world and its passions, holds the power of the world, a temple of Raj Rani, Bhuvaneshwar, 11th century. The incarnate world. Virala. Vak, the word or vibration of sound, is the principle of manifestation of a world made solely of energy and vibration. Before being manifest as thought, as a verbal and sounding form, the world is substantially consciousness, and inherent. It is manifest as speech in the human, as substance or matter in the universe, starting from its non-manifest principles, avyakta, in which it is only undivided consciousness. The word takes form first in the universal consciousness and intellect, and then in the multiple aspects of life. The manifested word is represented as the most subtle and the strongest of animal. The dragon serpent called Virala, its image associated with the deities, appears in every corner of the temple. In the likeness of the animal in full action, ridden by man, the sage who controls the power of the world. The dragon's name depends on how it is represented. It has a lion's head, it's called Simha Virala. If it has a man's head, it's called Nara Virala. And if an elephant's head, Gaja Virala. The sacred swan or goose, Hamsa. The swan, whose name Hamsa is represented in the base of the temple or more often on the ceiling of the mandapa, it has no fixed position. It is the vehicle of the god Brahma and represents the divine spirit that supports all life in form of breath, prana. With every breath, we consciously pronounce the sacred formula, mantra, identifying the macrocosm and microcosm, human and divine. Breath is expelled with a ha sound and is taken in with the sound sa. The living being ceaselessly repeats the mantra Hamsa. I am that. Garuda Puranam. Curiously enough, the two expressions of identity, Ahamsa, I am that, the Brahmas, proud formulation and modest mantra of the humble So Aham, that am I, have in Indo-European languages, given the German Hamsa and the English Swan. The sacred goose symbol, esoteric knowledge. Teshura, 10th century CE. A world apart. The raised platform on which the temple is built represents an altar on which the temple itself symbolizes the aspects of ritual sacrifice. Comprises 5 sanctuaries, 4 at the corner and 1 dedicated to the Shiva's vehicle, the bull, front of the entrance. The bull is represented standing. Both men and women touch its testicle to obtain fertility. There remains a circular mandapa, temple of Kiradu, Rajpadana, 12th century. During the great period of Indian architecture from the 9th to the 14th century, temples were veritable small towns surrounded by wall and including around the main sanctuary many smaller sanctuaries. There were great pools of ablutions, halls with even 1000 columns and platforms for spectacles. Dancing and theatre are the subject of the fifth Veda, since they are the means of teaching the people the legend of the gods and the virtues of the heroes. The theatre thus belongs to the temple activities. Female dancers also play a role in sacred prostitution, so essential to the social equilibrium. The merchants, however, had to stay outside the walls, where the priests, as well as the dancers and the musicians attached to the temple, had their residences. The problem of keeping merchants out of the temple did not only concern the Temple of Jerusalem. In southern India, it is still possible to see that the various enclosure walls, which make the temple a world apart, peopled by gods, priests, and crowds of the faithful. The origin of temple forms. The various temple structures appear to have different origins. In India, dolmens of the flat, standing stone covered by white slabs have existed from prehistoric times, marking sacred places and presence of deities. Menhirs, which are lingers, signs, also serve to call attention to the sacred nature of the site. Their phallic emblems and are also erected as ex votos in places that have already been constructed, their functions being to delimit the sacred area. The Vedic initiation hut, made of 4 bamboo poles struck in the ground, tied together at the top and covered with plated banana and palm leaves, could be another of the original elements and may have inspired the curved shape and shikara. The design of the Vedic altar, similar to the brick-built Greek altar, has also had a decisive role in conception of the Vastu Purusha. Lastly, the chariot, the vehicle of the gods. Each temple is linked to a chariot whose immobility is only apparent. Sometimes, as at the temple of the sun at Konark, enormous stone wheels create the illusion of an immense chariot bearing the temple itself to carry the gods' images. In procession, temple-shaped cars are built drawn by the faithful. According to the Agni Purana, the gods travel on 5 kinds of flying chariot: square, rectangular, round, elliptical, and octagonal. As the vehicle of the gods, the temples have the same form as their cars. Thus, all 5 forms are allowed to building a temple, since there are theoretically 9 variations to each of these forms. 45 different kinds of temples are possible. Agni Purana, according to Samaragna Sutradhara, 64 types of temple, 24 square types for Brahman, 10 rectangular types for Shiva, and 10 circular types for Kuvera, elliptical types for Varuna, and 10 octagonal ones for Indra. The wheel at Sun's Chariot Temple of Konark, 13th century. As far as the architectural styles are concerned, temples are divided into three categories: Nagara, Dravida, Visara. The Nagara style is universal, whereas the Dravida is ancient style found in southern India, and the Visara mule is a hybrid mixture of the two. The Nagara style, the tower is curved, whereas it is a pyramidal in Dravidian architecture. These different conceptions of temple architecture seem to have their origin in the two great traditions that form Indian civilization. The first is proto-historical Shaivite and Dravidian civilization, whose gods are asuras and whose architect is Maya. And second is the Vedic Aryan civilization, whose gods are called Suras and whose architect is Vishwakarma, the artificer of universe. The Dravidian type of Shikara temple at Malikara, Pattadakal, Mysore, 7th century. Maya, Asura, Sura, Vishwakarma. Temple of Nagara style, yeah. Architectural treatise. The Vastu Shastra, which is a treatise on architecture, is considered to be an Upaveda, a secondary Veda belonging, like the magical sciences Tantras, to the Atharva Veda, the science of subtle correspondence. The art of building is closely connected to astrology, since the temple evokes the structure of astral world and the orientation of its elements and ties tied to the forces and stars that determine the directions of space. Architecture thus has a magical symbolism aspect, a mathematical technical aspect, and a artistic craft work element. The theoretical magic and symbolic aspects are described in the Vastu Shastra, and in the Tantra, and the technical and the artistic aspects are found in the Shilpa Shastra, which are builders and artisans' manuals. Architecture is, however, more particularly concerned with astrology, Jyotisha, and ritual kalpa, since the temple is the center of the rites and sacrifices. Part 3: Revealing the Divine Mind. The images of the gods. The body, Akriti, of the temple represents Prakriti, primordial nature. In Shaivite temples dedicated to Shiva, the images are linga, an erect phallus. In the temples dedicated to other gods, they are represented anthropomorphologically, always in a standing position. The principal image of gods are placed inside recesses called Gana, Dvara, blind doors. These niches form passage of magical inflows and are not doors for human beings. Apsara Temple, Mukteshwara, 10th century. Main Tower Temple, Meenakshi, Madurai. Devi Jagadamba Temple, dedicated to Parvati, Khajuraho. Ganesha stone carving ruins and Vijayanagara, Karnataka state. Kandariya Mahadev Temple, belonging to the West group at Khajuraho, 11th century. Vishnu carving at Vittal Temple, Karnataka state, 16th century. Dancing Apsara, two musicians with drums. Parsvanatha Temple, Jaina Temple, Khajuraho. Temple surrounded by water of the foot, Matanga Hill, Vijayanagara, Karnataka. Sexual activities with a horse, Lakshmana Temple, Khajuraho, 10th century. The Temple of Konark, conceived as a gigantic chariot of the sun god, 13th century. Background: Yakshini, the bhaktas, devotees at the entrance of a temple now shown at the outskirts of the Madurai. Photograph. Incest, true lovers. Chwari temple, Khajuraho, photographed by Hanuman, a monkey god from the Ramana. Hazara temple, Rama temple, Vijayanagar, Karnataka state. Krishna temple outside Madurai. Adinath temple, Jain temple, Khajuraho, 11th century. Krishna and gopis at a temple outside Madurai. Decorated ceiling, temple of Meenakshi. Shiva holding a trident, temple at Khajuraho. The background, stone lion carved in pillar, Vittala, 16th century. Shikaras at the temple at Chakeshwar, Uttar Pradesh, century. Young women performing a puja in front of the linga at the Taladev temple dedicated to Shiva, Khajuraho, 10th century. Kandarya Mahadev, Khajuraho, Lakshman temple, Khajuraho, dancing Apsara, Taladev temple dedicated to Shiva, Khajuraho, 10th century. The more important gods are closer to the center of the temple than the images that surround them and are located precisely at the points corresponding to energies they represent on the temple's planned magical diagram. The faithful walking around the temple during the rite of circumambulation consequently perceive the images in their niches only when they are in the exact astral positions corresponding to each niche. Besides the principal deities representing the 8 directions of space, there are also images of Nagas, serpent gods of the underworld, Shardula, the lion god representing the force of nature, Prakriti, Apsara, and Sura Sundari, the dancers of heaven, secondary gods, the go-betweeners of the celestial and terrestrial worlds, and the Mithunas, erotic coupling, symbolizing voluptuousness, the image of celestial bliss and final goal of spiritual realization. The gods move freely through space and time, free from the restraints of weight and distance. They fly, albeit having no wings. The Gana and the Vidyaras are represented flying through the air. Gods shown standing usually appear in a state of repose, giving the body a triple curve tribhanga to which the symbolic meaning is attached. This triple orientation recalls the 3 tendencies or basic qualities of things, the Ganas. Sattva, the ascending tendency, purity, light, the color white, Rajas, the expansion activity, the red color, the Tamas, the descending tendency, degradation, darkening, the color black. Certain gods, such as the sun, on the other hand, are represented with rigidly straight body, Samabhanga. Hand and arm gestures follow the code of gestures. Language, mudras also employed in dance and the theatre, which can be understood by all, whatever language they speak. The god are always 16 years old, the age of perfection, after which the first signs of decline appear. In all the orders of creation, the number 16 indicates plenitude, perfection. For example, the 16th digit indicates the full moon. The beauty and harmony that characterized every aspect of creation are expressed or revealed in the immense variety of images covering the temple. When there are temples of Dasavataragad, 7th century. The Nagar Royal Serpent Temple, Mukateshwara, Bhubaneswar, 11th century. A pair of Nagas, Kanak. They help the faithful and pilgrims during the earthly sojourn to perceive all things indeed. In every being, the divine mind, they reveal luminous beauty of the world to those who want to see. Iconographic canons. The unit of portion in the thala, the length of the hand, corresponding to the length of the face, the usual canon for the images of the gods in the Navathala, 9 face lengths from the chin to the roots of the head. The body is divided into 8 times the length of the head. The head is subdivided into 12 angulates. The finger width, all body proportions are calculated in the basis. However, the canons for the female deities is of 8 thalas. Some text, such as the Vikshnagama, prefer a canon of Dasa Thala, 10 faces. For the image of Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva, there are also canons of 8 and 11 and 7 thalas, especially for representing Vamana, Vishnu's 7th incarnation as dwarf. Apsara with peacock, temple in Rajrani, Bhubaneswar, 12th century. Again, gigantic rock carving of Shiva. Bundelkhand, 19th century. The priest uses a bridge to venerate the erect linga. Clothing. In ancient India, clothes were not used to protect or cover the body, but solely to emphasize its shape and enhance beauty. Textile were light and transparent, ornamented with silver and gold. Filigree jewels also served to highlight the body, shapes and movement. There were jewels to decorate the head and the hair, rings for the ears and nostrils, necklaces, the bracelets for the wrists and the arm, belts, pendants and girdles for the hips and sexual organs, and rings for anklets, fingers and toes. The images of the gods are thus covered with ornaments, enhancing the body's shape. High crowns, Mukuta distinguished the sovereign gods. The ritual of Karen Singh. Yeah, so we can take a quick break.